Hello friends, Mandar here. I'm back with another video. Today we'll talk about the October 2021 Visa Bulletin. I already made a video previously indicating what we could expect from the October 2021 Visa Bulletin based on what Charlie said last month. But I will reiterate that into this video towards the end. But before that, I'm going to cover some important topics such as flood insurance, regular insurance that you should have after you get your green card, and some important questions regarding 485 downgrades and things like that. So you never know which topic is going to be important for you. So watch this video until the end and let's get started. If you are here for the first time, welcome. My name is Mandar and I make immigration related videos for US and Canada. I'm not an immigration lawyer, so anything that I say on this video or on my channel is for information purpose only. And for your specific immigration needs, before you take any action, you should hire a competent immigration lawyer. Now before we get into the Visa Bulletin towards the end, I wanted to answer some of the important questions that most of you had. One thing I will start with is the medical insurance. The first thing you want to make sure whenever you are in the United States, you need to have a good medical coverage. So some people have been talking to me that as soon as I get my green card, I'm going to stop working, and with that I probably will lose my medical coverage. So do I need to get a private medical insurance for myself and my family? I would highly recommend getting so. The reason is couple of things. One is you want to be covered for yourself. You have your life savings. You have been working in the United States for a long time and you have made some savings, and you don't want to waste that saving on a unexpected medical expense that you might be surprised with. Remember, the cost of medication and healthcare in this country is extremely high. And you might be surprised how high it is. At least 10 times what you would pay in the countries such as India compared to what you will pay in the United States. So medical insurance or health insurance is a must. In some countries in some states, it's actually mandatory to have a health insurance. I live in Massachusetts, and having a health insurance is a requirement by the state government. It's actually in your IRS form. So you need to submit a proof of medical insurance for the entire year when you fill your tax returns. And so back to the question whether I should continue to have medical insurance. Absolutely yes. You don't want to see your savings disappear because of some unexpected expense, and having a good insurance is always advisable. Now coming to the second question is, if you live in one of those areas that is frequently visited by hurricanes, you might also want to have a FEMA flood insurance. FEMA flood insurance is a government supported insurance in the event of a natural calamity such as hurricane, high winds, high water, tides, earthquakes and things like that. There are some riders that you will need to add depending on which geographical location you are in and whether that location is falls in the flood zone. You should have a FEMA flood insurance. I have some property in Texas, and although I am not in the flood zone area, I still carry a FEMA insurance, and I'll show you where to locate that. So this is the flood insurance, a national flood insurance program supported by FEMA, and you can buy a policy, a typical policy. For example, my home in Texas cost me about $650 or $600 per year, so which is not bad considering the fact that you get the peace of mind in case you have a hurricane, in case you have a water damage to your home as a result of one of those natural calamities. I strongly recommend, if you live in one of those flood zones such as New Orleans, Louisiana, Texas or things like that, you should carry a FEMA flood insurance. Now the next question is about the visas. So what happens if you are an H1B or L1 visa? There is a certain validity for your visa. For L1A, you typically have up to 7 years, or H1B you typically have 6 years of validity at a time, at a stretch. And if you have a green card application in process, depending on what stage of the green card you are in, you might be okay or not okay if you lose your H1B or L1B visa. So for instance, if you are an H1B and you just started your green card process in your 6th year, and you haven't even gotten to your I-140, and your 6 year limit is over, you are pretty much out of luck. You might have to go on to some other visa or leave the country and come back to reset your H1B validity. Same for L1. If you are in the 7th year and you haven't gone to that 485 stage yet, you will have to leave the country in case your 7 years are expired. But say for instance you have a green card in process and you are in the 485 stage of your green card. Now things are different because now the 485, which is adjustment of status, in itself gives you a pending adjustment of status, which is a valid status to be in the United States. So that is the status where the government is saying that you are waiting for your green card to be processed, so you are allowed to live in the country as long as your 485 adjustment of status is pending. So in this instance, even if you lose your H1B or L1 visa, you will still be allowed to be in status in the United States, which is pending adjustment of status. Now that just provides you the status. Remember, to work you either need a non-immigrant visa or an EAD, which is an employment authorization document. So while the adjustment of status 485 will give you that valid status to live, you will only have right to work if you have an EAD. So make sure when you apply for 485, you also apply for EAD and advanced parole, so that you can work and also you can travel outside the country. Now some people have been now there is a lot of confusion going on with a lot of people in their 485 stage. For the last several months, July, August and September, USCIS is trying to process as many green cards as possible, and in that process there are cases where they are getting, some people are getting phone calls, some people are getting emails to submit their medicals, some are getting RFEs, and some are getting RFEs multiple times for the same thing. In one case, somebody told me that they responded to an RFE for medical, and after a few days they still got another RFE for the same reason. Now my advice is, if you have already responded to the first RFE, maybe say for example for medical, and if you get another letter for the same purpose, which is RFE, the first one, as long as you have applied and responded to the first one within the time limit that they have given in the letter, you should be fine. So just so you know, and again, don't miss that phone call, don't miss that email. If you get those sort of things, respond to them in a timely manner, because that's where the officer is actually waiting for the final document from you, so that they can adjudicate your 485. Now a lot of people have also asked me about the EAD processing time. Some people are on their H1 and their spouse is on H4 EAD, which is a work permit that they can use while the primary applicant is on H1B. But the extensions and job changes and transfers of H1Bs are taking longer. Although you can expedite that with the premium processing, the H4 and EAD that goes along with that cannot be expedited, unfortunately. But there are certain situations, and I have made a special video on it. If there are compelling circumstances in the sense that you are about to lose your livelihood or a job because your EAD is expired and the new one hasn't arrived, there is a chance that you could apply for compelling circumstance EAD by working with your lawyer basically. So you have to kind of create a case that while you are applying for your extension of EAD or renewal of EAD, you are in the you stand to lose your job, and your livelihood and your living in the United States will become very difficult, especially if you have a US citizen child. Then you can say that you will have difficulty in providing for your US citizen child because your EAD will has not come in time. So that might be a case for you to expedite your H4 EAD in certain situations. So work with a lawyer if you find yourself in that situation. Now lots and lots of questions are on the birth certificate. So as the dates progress, many people come into this pool where they are now eligible for 485, and one of the most important documents that you will need to be prepared with is your birth certificate. Now, a lot of people may not have their birth certificate, or may have a certificate that does not give their parents' name, or even your own name, or just one of your parents' name, and so on and so forth. There are so many variations, especially from India. I know from rural areas and things like that, you may have birth certificate in several different formats. So now it is essential to have your name and your parents' name and your date of birth and place of birth. These are the 4 essential components of your birth certificate. If you don't have them, and if you cannot obtain them, then you need to have a letter proving that you cannot obtain it. Basically, no objection certificate or non-availability of that birth certificate. You need to get some kind of a letter from the issuing authority from India. In addition, you will also need to have an affidavit prepared by somebody who knows you for a certain duration of time. So typically lawyers will have a format for the affidavit where your relatives or your friends can vouch for you that you are the person who you say you are, and you were born in such and such country and such date, and that in conjunction with your non-availability of certificate, those 2 things can be in lieu of the actual birth certificate. So you might want to start preparing or working on that if you don't have your original birth certificate, because that is one of the biggest or most important documents in 485. Now another question is, a lot of people are stuck here due to pandemic, and their parents are in India, and they want to bring their parents over because the parents are getting older and you cannot travel there because of your visa issues, and they need to be taken care of. So some people are asking, can they be brought into the United States on B1, B2 visa? I would say yes, there are some restrictions right now, so you might want to check the consulates if they are allowing them. I don't think a leisure travel is allowed at this point of time, but if there are cases where you can ask for an exception, say for instance there is a family situation where the dependent or the son or daughter in the United States is a US citizen, or their grandchildren are US citizens, then there might be a case for the grandparents or parents to come to the United States on B1 or B2 visa to tend to their family members here in the US. So that could be an exception situation. You might want to work with the lawyer or actually approach the consulate on that part. The second thing is, can they live in the US for more than 6 months on an B1, B2 visa? Now yes, typically people are only given or allowed to live in the US on a visitor visa for up to 6 months only. Even if they have 10-year multiple entry visa, they are only allowed to live for the maximum of 6 months. But there are cases where you can apply for an extension of stay, and based on the discretion of USCIS officer, they may grant you an exception or extension for up to 3 to 6 months beyond the initial 6 months validity. So that might be an option for people who are looking for their parents to stay with them for a little bit longer than 6 months. Now another question, and this is one of the most common question, is what is happening with the downgrade petitions? In my opinion, there is nothing happening. Basically, they are being processed as any other application in the 485 pool. I came to know about several cases in the last 2 or 3 weeks where people from who have downgraded their petition from EB2 to EB3 last year in October or November have actually got their green card just recently. So they are progressing, downgrades are happening. they are coming into the pool and people are getting their green cards. Now in some cases, people who had the priority date later have still got their green cards, and people who had their priority dates earlier haven't got them. So it's kind of hit and miss because each service center is different. Nebraska versus Vermont versus Texas versus California, all are different, and they are processing at a different speeds. And although first in first out is the logic they are supposed to follow, it doesn't happen that way, and Charlie also said the same thing last time. So I would say don't lose your hope if you haven't gotten your green card, and if your date is still current, you will still get it. It's just a matter of you being processed in a certain service center that has probably messed up the order in which they are processed. I'm hearing a lot of stories about Texas service center where the applications are taking way too long. That might just be because the cases are being reshuffled from different regions, and you might just have been caught up into that. One of the ways that I would say to expedite your file is to reach out to your congressman or senators. Sometimes they are helpful. They can call USCIS and see what's going on, and that kind of nudges the USCIS to pick up your case and process it. But it's only hit and miss. It's not a guarantee, but you can try that avenue if you wish. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about is just to revisit the Visa Bulletin for October. So we heard from Charlie that there are not going to be any dates movement especially for EB category in October and November. So I don't anticipate any date changes for filing date chart for October, unless Charlie decides to bring us a surprise in this month's Visa Bulletin, which will be published in the next few days. And in his interview, if he gets any additional information about the numbers availability, how many were processed in the last month, and so on, things could change. I'm certainly hopeful that we will still see some dates moving forward, but as of now I have to say that since Charlie said there is not going to be any dates movement, we might not see any dates movement for filing date chart in October Visa Bulletin. Then now there might be some movement in the final action chart, because final action chart really does not depend on Charlie, but it depends on the USCIS processing the cases. If they have processed cases faster enough, you might see a little bit progression in final action date chart. So this is what I speculate. For EB category, EB1 will remain current, EB2 will still stay I'm talking about India. EB2 will stay at 1st of December 2011, and EB3 filing date chart will remain at 1st of March 2014. But for final action date chart, EB1 will still remain the same. EB2 might progress by a week or two, or maybe up to a month, depending on how fast USCIS has processed their cases in September. If they have processed way faster than what we had anticipated, then you might see the final action date chart for EB2 might have progressed a little bit, and same goes for EB3 as well. So I'm expecting a little bit of a progression of final action date chart in October, but nothing for filing date chart. Typically USCIS uses filing date chart in October for application of 485. So, and in November, I expect to see a significant progression in filing date chart, but we'll come to that a little bit later, after we get the new Visa Bulletin published by USCIS, by State Department, in the upcoming days. And last but not least, there is a finance reconciliation bill for $3.5 trillion, which is coming up. And although there are a lot of provisions for non-employment based categories such as documented dreamers, non-documented dreamers, so on and so forth, or pathway to citizenship for DACA, we might see some elements of immigration related stuff for EB category, and if there is, I will be sure to make a detailed video on that. So stay tuned to my channel for that information. So if you like the content of this video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to my channel, and I'll see you in the next one.